Charlotte had agreed to bring him in the afternoon on Friday, but instead of her, it was the police who showed up at my house. What seems to be the problem, officers? You. We've received multiple reports that you've been more than a year without paying child support. What? That can't be. I've been keeping up with those payments. I can even show you the receipts. We've already taken a look at your ex-wife's accounts, and we've noticed there have been no incoming payments from you. If you want to show us your receipts, go ahead, but I doubt they'll show anything relevant. To my frustration, the police were right. My payment receipts were useless. Apparently, my ex had deceived me, asking me to deposit the child support money into an unrelated account that wasn't hers and couldn't be traced. All this to get me into trouble with the law and extract even more money from me. Hi, my name is Eric. I had been dating Charlotte, my girlfriend at the time, for a while when she confessed she was pregnant with my child. It was a surprise because we were both careful to prevent this sort of thing from happening. But after the initial shock, I accepted it without much trouble. Contraceptives fail, and if Charlotte wanted to have a child, I was okay with it. We weren't married or even living together, but we both had stable jobs and knew we could provide for the baby when it arrived.
You'll see how you'll get used to the idea, and when the baby is here, you'll even wonder why we didn't try to have one sooner.
I doubt that'll happen in the first year, with all the things we'll have to adjust and our period of getting used to the new circumstances. But once I get used to it, sure, why not?
We'll be a perfect family, you'll see. Have some faith.
Maybe not much else, but faith I had in abundance. During those months of pregnancy, and even a little afterward, once Henry was born and some more time had passed, Charlotte and I were at our best. We were both on top of things, taking care of each other and preparing for the arrival and subsequent upbringing of our child together. We took some well-deserved vacations when we could, renovated the house so that tasks would be out of the way once we were busy again, and complimented each other doing household chores as if we'd been cooperating for decades. It was wonderful, and if I ever doubted that we were rushing things by moving in together, having a child, and becoming a happy family after Charlotte and I had only known each other for 2 months, my doubts soon evaporated. Perhaps, in hindsight, I should have been suspicious that something was amiss. Not because of what Charlotte was doing, but because of the attitude Alice, Charlotte's sister, seemed to have taken towards me on each of her visits.
I bet Eric doesn't help you with anything around the house. At most, he puts some of his salary towards buying diapers for Henry.
Oh, but he does help me. In fact, he's very helpful. For a moment, we thought we'd need to hire domestic help, but in the end, it wasn't necessary.
Now that's a surprise. Don't take offense, Eric, but I've heard from many friends stories of women getting pregnant and their partners leaving them without a second thought.
I understand the concern, but I'm not like that.
No, we know you're not. Don't mind my sister. Ah, do you hear that? Henry's crying. He must have woken up from his nap. Why don't you go see what he needs?
As the months passed and Henry grew, I realized Charlotte was attending to him less and less. It's not that she was neglecting him per se, but if I was home at the same time as her, 90% of the time when the baby cried, it was me who took on the responsibility of attending to him. And no, I didn't mind at first, because I already considered Henry my son and saw it as a blessing to spend so much time with him. But I couldn't ignore the patterns of behavior of my girlfriend. Not only did she pawn off the child whenever she could, but she also seized any excuse to be away from him. She was increasingly leaving the house, either with her sister or her own friends, leaving me or a nanny to care for the baby. I think we should resolve this. You know, I don't mind doing my part in parenting. In fact, I'm happy to participate. But I get the impression that you're not interested in doing yours.
How dare you? Are you saying I don't care about my son? You should be ashamed to even insinuate that.
I'm not saying that. It's just that maybe we should distribute the workload more evenly. I'm not telling you that you can't go out and have fun whenever you want.
You'd better not. I hope you're not proving Alice right, that you're not worth it, neither as a partner nor for raising a child together. And speaking of Henry, I think it's time for his meal.
Charlotte only tended to him after we argued, briefly, to prove her point that she wasn't a negligent mother. But afterward, once the attention wasn't on her anymore, she reverted to being the same neglectful person as always. Not only did she go out whenever she pleased, barely stopping to make sure there was someone to take care of Henry in her absence, but she had also started asking me for more and more money for her expenses. At first, I thought it was for the child, as she claimed, but once I checked the accounts, I was confronted with the reality. No, only a small portion of all that money I gave her actually went towards Henry. The rest she spent on herself. I endured in that relationship for a couple more years for the sake of our child, but in the end, I couldn't take it anymore, and we separated. By law, she got custody, and I had to pay child support to ensure Henry lacked nothing. Henry could come to visit me every weekend at my new apartment, and in fact, that day when chaos arrived at my doorstep, it was precisely the child I was expecting. Charlotte had agreed to bring him in the afternoon on Friday, but instead of her, it was the police who showed up at my house. What seems to be the problem, officers? You. We've received multiple reports that you've been more than a year without paying child support. What? That can't be. I've been keeping up with those payments. I can even show you the receipts. We've already taken a look at your ex-wife's accounts, and we've noticed there have been no incoming payments from you. If you want to show us your receipts, go ahead, but I doubt they'll show anything relevant. To my frustration, the police were right. My payment receipts were useless. Apparently, my ex had deceived me, asking me to deposit the child support money into an unrelated account that wasn't hers and couldn't be traced. All this to get me into trouble with the law and extract even more money from me. I knew that my money did reach Charlotte for child support, as Henry lived well, lacking nothing. And Charlotte could even afford to not work or work fewer hours than she used to. It's just that my money was being obtained by another means of which I had no idea. The authorities, seeing that my story didn't match the documents, took me to court, and I ended up in jail for that alleged non-payment that never happened. It was a terrible few months for me, though fortunately, I was able to hire a good defense lawyer. Have you ever considered getting a DNA test? No. Why would I do that? I've never doubted that the child is mine. Maybe you should. I've been reviewing the case and I don't like it at all. I don't think it's far-fetched that your ex has been deceiving you to get your money. What do you recommend I do besides the test? Perhaps we should thoroughly investigate her, find out what she's up to, not just now, but before. It's likely we'll uncover some dirty tricks, especially since she already deceived you with the accounts. My legal team was right, of course. I got out of prison quickly, without even needing to go to trial, because after investigating a bit more deeply, they realized that the account I was sending the child support money to belonged to Alice, who very cleverly kept quiet about receiving these sums and had been secretly passing that money on to Charlotte. To make matters worse, the DNA test revealed that Henry wasn't mine, but someone else's, whom I later found out still had dealings with Charlotte. It seems it was all a strategy from the beginning to get me behind bars, for hurting her pride by leaving her and demanding that she respect my rights, and meanwhile, extracting more money from me. Fortunately, now justice was on my side, and after reporting her and exposing all the deception she orchestrated against me, it was Charlotte who was arrested. Alice wanted to fight for custody of the child, but she too was convicted for her participation in the scheme and forced to pay the corresponding fine. I would like to obtain custody of Henry, now that his mother and aunt will spend some time behind bars. Are you sure? You don't have any responsibility towards him anymore. In fact, the judge has already ruled that Charlotte must return all the child support money you gave her, plus a considerable compensation for everything she put you through. I still want custody, even though we're not related by blood. I was the one who cared for Henry the most in his early years. I consider him family, and I wouldn't want to lose contact. Not to mention, I was worried about what would become of him if I didn't obtain his legal custody. I didn't trust Charlotte's family, nor Henry's biological father, who, as far as I knew, had also been taking advantage of me in his own way, spending my money and seeing my ex behind my back. And I feared that Charlotte would soon be released from prison and return to her old tricks. The latter wouldn't happen, as my ex got a hefty sentence. Although it was the first time she had orchestrated a deception of these proportions, she was no stranger to trying to scam people for personal gain. I had no trouble obtaining full custody of Henry, which was a relief. I believe it was beneficial for both Henry and me. It turned out that Charlotte had continued to neglect Henry, often going on vacations with Henry's biological dad using the money I sent. Sometimes, she would leave Henry all alone at home. Despite this, Henry consistently showed a preference for me. Hence, when he separated from his mother, he didn't really miss her. On the contrary, the child adapted quickly to living with me, in a home that turned out to be much healthier than what he was used to. I filed a case against Henry's biological father for conniving with my ex and defrauding me, and he too was arrested. Not only did I ensure justice was served for the son I ended up adopting, but my ex also lost her freedom and her chance to claim Henry ever again, as I made her sign a document where she forever renounced custody, in exchange for forgiving her a small part of her debt to me. Meanwhile, Henry and I were able to start a new life together as the family we were always meant to be. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe for more stories.